When the Chevrolet Camaro Z28 first debuted back in 1967, it was built with the racetrack in mind. And that's why it's fitting that we're here at the Barber Motorsports Park in Birmingham, Alabama for our first test drive in this, the all-new 2014 Z28.
So how does it drive? Chevrolet has just done a fantastic job making this a track-ready car. It just feels like it's born for the track.
The original Z28 was a performance muscle car for those with blue collars, while this version, well, it cost $75,000. In fact, it's the most expensive Camaro in history.
They probably only sell 3,000 total of these cars, many of which will probably be wrapped in bubble wrap and stored in a temperature-controlled garage and never really driven like this in anger, which is how the Z28 is supposed to be.
It's also the most technologically advanced. It boasts 505 horsepower, the same motor used in the outgoing Corvette Z06, and it features trick dampers made by the same folks that supply the Red Bull Formula One team.
So these particular dampers were on an Aston Martin 177. That's the only other production car that has ever featured these dampers, and that car cost well over $1 million. So that's pretty special having it on here. Basically gives you infinite range of adjustability, gives the engineers, not you. If you buy this car, you can't adjust the settings yourself, which is a bit of a shame, but the engineers basically said, hey, we can do it better than you can. And who are we to doubt them?
It also arrives with carbon ceramic brakes as standard.
Late on the brakes, God, these things stop so well.
And has Pirelli Trofeo R tyres that were originally developed for an amateur Porsche racing series in Europe.
There's so much grip. A lot of that is for sure down to these tyres. They've obviously lost a bit of sound deadening in the effort of keeping the weight down on this car. And they got it 300 pounds lighter than the ZL1, which is a sizable amount. The rear glass is 0.3 millimeters thinner, and that saves 400 grams. So, not very much, but that's the level of detail.
So as you can tell, no expense has been spared. And that makes it $75 grand price tag, in fact, remarkably good value. Only you don't get air conditioning, or a stereo, or navigation. And looking out of the car is a little like peering out of a World War II bunker. But what you do get is a machine unlike any other at this price. You get an actual race car, only one that you can drive to the shops.
Really, only big thing with this is the steering is very light. I'd like more feel through it. I'd like to feel the road a little bit more. Throttle's in a good position for heel and toe. Still feels a little heavy. The car really, just the Camaro in general, is a little heavy. You'd like to take, they took 300 pounds off this car. It would be nice if we could take another 300 pounds off. You know, I'm sure every engineer in the world is saying the same thing. Gosh, brakes. Brakes. First thing that takes my breath away is these brakes. Massively good. Really impressed me most about this car is the change of direction. It's really very, very stiff platform on this car. The suspension's very stiff, the dampers are stiff. And what that does is it gives you the feeling far more like a race car than really any production car I've driven.
The engineers at Chevrolet are so convinced that their latest creation is groundbreaking for a muscle car, they invited us to bring a playmate to join it on track. So we decided not to bring a Mustang because, well, that would be too easy for the Z28, and instead we brought something a little faster. This is a 2014 Nissan GTR Track Edition. It boasts 40 more horsepower than the Z28, costs $40,000 more, and should, in all honesty, comprehensively thrash the Camaro.
Big thing with this, all-wheel drive. That gives it a 0 to 60 time of 2.7 seconds. Doesn't come with the carbon ceramics, and it comes with a $116,000 price tag. Whoa, already just in the first couple of corners, the punch out of the turns is insane. This thing is so fast.
These incredible bursts of acceleration derive from its clever all-wheel drive system and short gear ratios. Unlike the Z28 and its 6-speed manual transmission, in the GTR you get paddles attached to a dual clutch transmission.
Very quick shifts. They used to really seem like the benchmark to me, but now when you've got Porsche's PDK system, that really is pretty fantastic, and one of the best, if not the best on the market. It feels like it lags a little bit, but that's really picking at it, to be honest. Doesn't have quite the mid-corner grip of the Z28. Doesn't have the poise of the Z28, which says a lot about the Camaro, really, doesn't it?
The experience by some has been described as easy, or like driving a PlayStation. I, however, don't agree. I say it's more like flying a space rocket through a 7-Eleven, or driving a go-kart around a toilet bowl. But before I could come up with any more silly analogies, something went wrong, causing my time in the GTR to come to an abrupt end. And no, I didn't crash it. Somebody at Nissan had forgotten to tighten the lug nuts on the left front wheel. This meant the wheel had nearly fallen off at over 100 miles an hour, and that one of the threads had actually snapped clean off. This caused a problem beyond the obvious.
There's a big old vibration with this thing. So back in the GTR, we had a little issue earlier where this snapped off. Not great. We're getting back into the car though. And we're going to go and do some laps, see what this thing's got.
See, even when we retightened the remaining nuts, mine weren't large enough to push the car to the max. This meant completing a timed hot lap to compare to the Z28 was impossible. So was the GTR faster than the Z28 around the track? I think it probably was, primarily due to its far superior acceleration. However, the Z28 had it covered in the corners, so it would have been close. But does it really matter? Is a Z28 buyer really going to cross-shop a Nissan GTR? Some may do, but I'm left feeling like both are remarkably capable in very different ways. The GTR is insane. It made me smile like a simpleton and laugh like an idiot. And it's all because you never get used to that monstrous punch out of the corners. And that's coming from a guy who's driven a McLaren Formula 1 car. The Z28, on the other hand, is more precise. It changes direction better and it's more nimble. It's cheaper, it looks better, it sounds less like it's going to fall apart, and it has a proper manual transmission. But it doesn't make you grin. It's as serious as its menacing face depicts. And that's because it's made for serious people who want to go to the track and beat less serious people in their fancy, more expensive supercars. I never thought I'd say this, but on this day, on this track, the American muscle car behaved like a precision instrument, whereas the Japanese supercar, well, that felt more like a hammer.
I was fearful that Chevrolet had been overconfident when it came to this all-new Z28. After spending the day on track, I think they nailed it. For Yahoo Autos, I'm Lloyd.